Hey, everybody, welcome back to Lettermen Row. I am Austin Ward. We got the whole crew in the building, Jeremy, Birmingham, Spencer Holbrook, and Tim May. This is Rapid Reaction brought to you by Byers Auto. As expected, Ohio State, the Big Ten champions, fresh off the 22-10 win over Northwestern on Saturday in Indianapolis, are heading back to the playoff. They are the 3 seed. They will get their rematch against Clemson, both of those things, which they desperately wanted, obviously. A little bit of a surprise just with where they're headed. We anticipated that game would be in Dallas, but the opportunity to potentially give Alabama a home field advantage against Notre Dame tipped the scales. So instead, the Buckeyes will be in the Sugar Bowl, another place where they've had some success in the semifinal. Berm, your initial reaction to this confirmation on Selection Sunday?
I mean, it's what we pretty much expected for the last month. As long as the Buckeyes won out, the way that the other teams that had to play each other would shake down, you figured, we talked about it last week. Ohio State was going to move up to number 3 and would play the winner of the ACC championship game in the playoff. And here we are, Ohio State, Clemson again. I mean, it's time to exercise some demons, I guess, or let the demons continue to beat the crap out of you. One of the two.
Tim, do I go next?
Yeah. What did
you want me to go next, Austin? Yeah. I'm not, the only surprise is the fact that, like you said, they're not, but the Rose Bowl is not the Rose Bowl this year from the standpoint of where it is. We all expected possibility of them being in the Rose Bowl against Clemson if, in fact, the Rose Bowl stayed in Pasadena. It's really interesting that Alabama's perceived to have a better audience in maybe Dallas than it is Sugar Bowl, because the Sugar Bowl, I go back a long way with Alabama. That's always been their home field, so to speak, when it came to bowl games. But yeah, this played out. I've said this all week last week. I think unless there were a big upset in the Alabama game, that I thought the 4 last week were going to be the final 4 this week and maybe another order. But yeah, I think even Wyatt Davis and other guys have hinted that they wanted another shot at Clemson. That's as much a reason why Wyatt Davis came back as anything else. Now you got it.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of flopping the sites there so that Alabama. Dallas is going to have 16,000 fans in attendance, so potentially to give them an actual home field compared to 3,000 fans being allowed in the Sugar Bowl. Yeah. I mean, we're making all of this up as we go. Why not just do it that way? In most years, you're right. I think Alabama would prefer that's the traditional site for an SEC champion to go. But whatever. Ohio State, Clemson in New Orleans, Spencer, as Tim alluded to, this has been circled and hoped for the Buckeyes since December 28th of last year.
It was hung in the weight room at the Woody Hayes Athletic Center, the final score. They had to be reminded of it through winter conditioning and mat drills and through those 2 spring practices before they went home. I imagine it was on some Zoom calls in the background when Mick Marotti was talking to some of these guys about what they were supposed to do. And I can imagine that it was up there all season because this is the goal. The goal is to get back to the college football playoff and beat Clemson. And I think it would have been a little hollow on this path if they can win a national championship and didn't get a chance to beat Clemson. I think this is exactly what they wanted. They've got the exact thing that they wanted. Doesn't matter where it's being played. It's Ohio State, Clemson, 0-4 against them all time. It's time, like Berm said, for Ohio State to try and exercise some of these demons.
Yeah, let me interject this too. Isn't it amazing? Well, the way this season has gone, as crazy as it's been, that this is the matchup, that they have arrived at this, that you've got these 4 perennial powers. I'm throwing Notre Dame in there as a traditional power, but these are the matchups, and that it is Ohio State. Clemson is crazy.
The wormhole opened last year when Ohio State lost to Clemson the way they did. The entirety of 2020 that has occurred is because of the outcome of that game. I think we can all agree.
I agree. Yeah.
Whatever they were watching on that replay monitor was from a different dimension to overturn the touchdown. I would hesitate to put modern day Notre Dame in that conversation you're talking about with the powerhouses, Tim, because they've become such a doormat in big games. But I think the committee had long ago come to the realization that these were the 4 best for this season. I don't think that there's any chance that Notre Dame can beat Alabama. And now we have, 10, 11 days to break down whether Ohio State can break this streak against Clemson. I think from my perspective, and you guys can weigh in here, the things that we're going to be talking about over the next week and a half, Justin Fields is going to have to play much better as a passer, and that thumb is going to need to check out. It's when we're talking about, that's a similar conversation between Clemson 2019 and the college football playoff semifinal. Is Justin Fields going to be healthy? Now we'll be talking about his thumb every single day.
Crazy.
I think that this Clemson defense is not one of the premier vintages that they've ever had. This is an interesting matchup, but I give Justin Fields a lot of credit, Berm, for what he talked about right after that game. He didn't talk about his thumb. He didn't talk about, play calling or, Northwestern's defense or anything else. He just said he had to play better.
Justin's legacy is going to be defined by what happens in this Clemson game. I mean, we've seen him be as good as any quarterback in Ohio State history most times he stepped on the field. And then you have a couple games where he has looked fairly pedestrian. And the 2 games this year against the best 2 defenses Ohio State has faced, he's looked pedestrian. He has been really frazzled by the blitzing that Indiana and Northwestern did. And you know darn well Brent Venables is going to be trying to mix things up and get him to be uncomfortable. And certainly the good news is that the Big Ten appears to be on board with changing its COVID protocols and lowering the number of days that people are out from 21 to 17, which should allow Chris Olave to be back for the Clemson game, as long as he takes care of all the pulmonary testing that he needs to post-return. Yep. The Buckeyes are going to be at as full strength as possible right now, assuming that Justin's thumb is okay. He was fixing a flat tire in the parking lot of the WAC, they said today. So, maybe he's doing that with both hands, I'd assume.
They couldn't find anybody else to go help him?
Hey, listen, it's 2020. You got to learn to do that stuff yourself, okay? There's a need for people to know the trades.
I got 3 letters for him. AAA, man. AAA. It's come to my rescue a couple of times.
Justin Fields can't be a AAA player against Clemson. He needs to be a major league player against Clemson.
Bingo. You don't want your major league player changing a tire. You want your AAA doing it.
And everything in Ohio State, every opportunity for Ohio State to beat Clemson relies solely on Justin Fields. Certainly the Buckeyes have to feel good about what they saw against Northwestern with the running game and the reestablishment of the dominance of that offensive line. They're going to need that against Clemson's front 7.
I agree 100%, but what we're saying here, it's the rematch, but it's not the 2 same teams, including Ohio State. Ohio State got beat last year. Yeah, but the call that was reversed, but also the fact they gave up 3 huge plays in that game when they had done a good job of keeping that from happening earlier that year, earlier in the season. That's why they got beat. But these aren't the same teams that we saw take the field a year ago, except in uniform. And Ohio State defense, in my opinion, like I said in my bold prediction on this site, on LettermenRow.com on Friday, the Ohio State defense, I think everybody left the stadium saying the better defense on Saturday in Indianapolis was Ohio State when the dust settled. And I think this defense still has a ways to go to prove itself. But I thought the 2 best defenses on the fields yesterday of the top 4 were Clemson and Ohio State. And so, we'll see where this goes. I just think this just oozes with pregame and Dabo Swinney basically alluding that Ohio State probably shouldn't be considered in the top 4. That just adds to it, in my opinion.
Yeah, Spencer, I doubt that Ohio State needed any extra motivational fuel to break this streak against Clemson and after what happened last year. But there's Dabo running his mouth anyway to give it to him.
Yeah, you've always got a storyline when it comes to Dabo, especially when he's trying to talk about Ohio State. He's always got something to say about the Buckeyes. And I think
he has something to say about everything, let's be honest.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, for sure. But when it comes to what we pay attention to, it seems like every time you need a quote from a different coach about Ohio State, Dabo's just there to give one to you and to give you a little bit of motivation. I think this is going to fuel the Ohio State team. I think you're going to hear a lot about how Trevor Lawrence is going to carve into this secondary. I think that's going to fuel the Ohio State defense. You're going to talk about Travis Etienne against this run defense, which is going to be an awesome matchup to watch. It might be my favorite thing to watch on this field. You're going to hear about Justin Fields struggling against blitzes. That's going to fuel this team. And then, of course, Dabo is probably going to say something in the next 10 days that makes Ohio State a little angry again. So no shortage of storylines here. Super excited to dive into this. I just can't wait. It's going to be awesome.
Hey,
you know how they always have time for war, playing Michigan week, time for war. You seem to have Dabo flapping his gums, playing over the loudspeakers in the WAC.
Yeah.
For the nonstop, I would want, if I was Ryan Day, I would have my players going to sleep hearing Dabo Swinney's voice for the next 10 days. I would never stop letting them hear his voice.
Gabby Dabo, is that what you're trying to say? I think that's what you're trying to say there. Yeah, I mean, former walk-ons always seem to have a chip on their shoulder. Go ahead.
And ESPN has already reported, Berm, that the Big Ten protocols will change from 21 to 17. You referenced that with potentially some players who missed the Big Ten championship game, including a wide receiver. We'll see exactly what that means for the Buckeyes. If somebody tests positive between now and then, that will not help.
Nope.
That cutoff would be what? It would have been Tuesday of this week. So we'll see exactly what that means for the availability report moving forward. Ohio State will still have to take those daily tests. They'll still have to be careful over the next 11, 12 days to avoid adding to that unavailability list. That's still been pretty sizable and, had numerous starters on that list again on Saturday for Ohio State to deal with. Kevin Warren, since we haven't got that directly confirmed by the Big Ten, Kevin Warren talked with me on Friday, suggested that was coming. Ohio State was expecting 17. I don't really understand why that's still the number. I guess it's still 7 days for the heart screening, but that is better than what they had before.
Yeah, you know what I was told, because I tweeted that late last week that was probably going to be the case. And the reason I did that was I was told that it's more of that they can get a quicker read on whether you've got myocarditis. The Big Ten's the only one, I think, of the major conferences that actually, demands that you have an MRI for the myocarditis thing, which can show whether you have it or not immediately is the way I was told. And I think they've shortened that part of it. I think their reacclimation part is the part, we've all kind of struggled with. But when you heard Josh Myers talk about that, where he wasn't allowed to do anything for 10 days while he had it, that reacclimation kind of makes a little bit of sense. Don't you agree?
Well, Berm, you took notice of Josh Myers walking off the field last night.
He looked exhausted. But they had just run for 1,000 yards.
Yeah.
And so, I could have been that, but he definitely, I'm just watching the celebration on the field. There was certainly just exhaustion, and he looked particularly more winded than other guys, but I may have also just been spotlighting him at that moment. And it could have been a look of just like, holy crap, we just won this game when we maybe shouldn't have, so I was 6,000 yards away. So who knows?
Yeah,
but,
can I throw something in real quick? I've been watching Ohio State football now for a very long time, especially the way the right side of the offensive line took control yesterday. I almost from the start, but then Ryan Day and his coaches figured it out too, and Trey Sermon. But I'm talking about Nicholas Petit-Frere and Wyatt Davis especially had a game, man. And, Trey Sermon benefited from that. Trey Sermon also ran like he hasn't run before for Ohio State, which was also – but that was a sight to behold, my friends.
That's how you win 4 consecutive Big Ten championships. Ohio State did that on Saturday. The very next day, they, as expected, punched that bid back to the college football playoff. They will play Clemson in a 2-3 matchup. It will not be in the Rose Bowl. Neither will it be in Dallas. It's back to the Sugar Bowl. Buckeyes, Clemson, another round. Ohio State trying to get revenge. Not going to call it a revenge tour. Those don't usually work out that well. That's Jeremy Birmingham, Spencer Holbrook, and Tim May. I am Austin Ward. This has been Byers Auto Rapid Reaction. Stay with us for full coverage heading into the Sugar Bowl at lettermenrow.com.